Fourth inning, Chapter 30. Spring training was different this season. There were reporters and photographers from newspapers and magazines around the country who were there to chronicle the worst team in baseball's next act. They swarmed around the clubhouse and hotels, taking notes and pictures of everything Lakeland, Florida had to offer the world, which wasn't much. Everyone wanted an interview with Palmer at the end of each day's practice. And he was so used to the typical questions that he kept his own private top 5 list of the most ridiculous ones. First on the list had to be, number 1, if you were Fidrich, would you fire you? The next ones were equally as freaky. Number 2, do you feel like you're disgracing the Old English B? Number 3, if Ty Cobb were alive, what advice would he give you? Number 4, do you like losing? And number 5, ever think about retirement? But the one question that no one asked, nor would Willie have answered anyway, was, do you have any secret weapons this time around? Chapter 31. Vince and Charlie, snowbirds from the north, sat in the Lakeland, Florida donut shop sipping their frozen coffees. Reading the sports section out loud to each other, they commented on Palmer's answers from yesterday's news conference. I think they're being a bit harsh, don't you? Asked Vince. If Ty Cobb were alive today, he'd slide spikes first into the dope who asked that question, answered Charlie. Chief Blanchette from Lakeland PD overheard them. Blanchette himself was a Michigander, transplanted down south decades ago. You boys ever see a Bengals game up in D-Town, he asked, Charlie and Vince. Only about a dozen a year, Vince answered. 45 minutes later, Chief Blanchette hurried out of the donut shop, 40 minutes late for his shift. Chapter 32. There was a different mood around the so-called Bengal Dome, nicknamed several years earlier by legendary Bengal announcers brothers Chris and Keith Turner. The weather being mild and exceptionally hospitable to baseball in the dead of winter made people think of a climate-controlled stadium. No matter how hard Fidrich tried to change the nickname to the Pizza Palace, it never seemed to catch on. All Willie Palmer could attribute the new mood around the place to was himself. No one else except the team's owner knew they had a pitching ace in the hole. No one on his staff had any reason to suspect that this year, with its typically lousy crop of off-season trades and draft picks, would be any better than last year's. So why was everyone loose and seemingly in great spirits through the better part of their stay? It was, in a way, so foreign to the Bengals of recent years. The Sluggers were having fun during batting practice and made up different games to see which targets they could peg in the outfield or the stands. The infielders, when they weren't busy running laps, were having a blast flipping the baseballs to first or second base in different, unusual ways. Okay, yelled Willie during grounder drills. Now what can you show me if there's a runner on second who only got there due to a fielder's choice and he doesn't really deserve to be there? Go! And he'd slap a one-hopper to short and laugh as the fielder would glove the ball and pretend to clothesline the runner with it. The players couldn't remember having this much fun. And one evening, sitting alone in his hotel room watching Letterman, Palmer realized why they were enjoying themselves. It's because they remember playing ball as kids. They were remembering it's just a really fun game. The very next morning, as he arrived to the clubhouse early, he was surprised to see the light on in his office. The stadium was mostly empty, and so, a little apprehensively, the manager casually pulled a .32 Lexington Slugger from the bat box as he nonchalantly strode towards the door. It was almost dropped, the lumber to the floor, when he saw Hope sitting inside with a goofy-looking smile on his face. Hope, geez, dude, how are you? Thanks for showing up, he said. Then he added, how'd you get in here? Hey, boss. So what's this I read in the Daily News that spring training's fun these days? Hope answered in the form of a question. Fun? Yeah, really, it has been. But I gotta say, knowing that I have you in my lineup makes it a whole lot easier for me to loosen up and not feel like I have to ride the team so much. How'd you get into my office? How do I throw a slider that defies contemporary logic? Hope answered as a way of explanation. I wanted to talk to the pitchers today, if possible, and introduce myself. All of this in private, of course. Oh, yeah, sure, we can do that. What do you want to say? Well, here's the thing. If I'm joining this team and taking the starting rotation away from some young kid, I'd rather let them Hear it from me. Hear my pitch before they see my pitch, if you will. Willie reached up and subconsciously scratched the back of his neck. Hope already knew that was the sign the manager was nervous. What kind of pitch are you going to give them? Don't worry, I won't launch into one of those lectures I tried to give you up in the snow. These kids are a lot younger, and I think I'll just appeal to their sense of wonder. I wonder... yeah, I know, you wonder if it's such a good idea. But you're going to have to trust me on this one, Coach. Chapter 33. Throughout the day, Willie Palmer would occasionally spy Hope sitting in the stands or loitering on the grassy knoll behind left field fence. Even though he was now a contracted player on a professional baseball team, he kept himself to the fans' side of the stadium and was dressed inconspicuously in shorts and a ratty old T-shirt, which looked like it had spent its better years as a nightshirt or a home repair throw-on. No one paid him any notice, except for one of the Daily News photographers, down covering spring training, who kept training her 600mm lens on Hope and wondering, "Why does he look familiar?" thought Galligan, as she continued to scan the small crowd whenever there was a break in the action. But then a bat cracking or the pop of a ball in a mitt would call Galligan back to the field, and she'd swing her lens to where she was being paid to watch. This should be fun, thought Hope, and the next time the photographer swung her focus his way, he looked over his right shoulder from way out along the left field foul line, then winked and smiled straight into Galligan's lens. The revelation shocked the photographer. Like a fake reaction in a bad movie, she jerked her head back and away from the viewfinder, shook it like she was trying to toss disbelief out of her forehead, and then immediately thumbed the digital screen on the back of her camera to see if she saw what she had seen. The little rectangular screen took only a heartbeat to power up and show Galligan the vision she was sure she'd imagined. There, in pixels and protons, was the exact same guy that she'd shot more than a month ago at Victory Field up in Pleasant Ridge on that freezing afternoon. When she put her eye back to the viewfinder and scanned the stands that she was just aimed at, though, the dude was gone. Chapter 34. Practice was over for the day, and the outfielders were all going to see a movie. They got showered and left quicker than usual. There were thankfully no interviews to give today, which made the locker room even emptier. No one paid much attention as a man of indeterminate age, dressed in shorts and T-shirt, strolled into the clubhouse wearing the proper credentials around his neck to get him past the bored ushers. Most of the Bengals' starting rotation was sitting around a table playing poker for low stakes. Colonel Sanders, who last year barely escaped notoriety by almost losing 20 games, was the clear winner in the early rounds of Acey-Deucey. He called pot on an ace-4 split and excitedly raked in the enormous stack of nickels and dimes that had grown to a whopping $3.60. When Palmer eyed Hope, he shouted, "Game's over, I need to see all the pictures in my office, now!" To a chorus of, Coach," and it was just getting good, Willie responded, "Chicken Man was hustling you anyway. You got to know when to hold 'em, you got to know when to fold 'em." As the rookies were coming in from the shower, the starting rotation always made them shower last, Palmer said under his breath, "So, Hope, where do you want me to start?" "Just tell them you have someone you'd like them to meet, and hand me that baseball, would you?" Hope answered, gesturing to the autographed 1984 ball that the manager kept in a small plastic case on his desk. When all 16 pitchers, relievers, and starters, rookies and those about to be cut, were jammed into the office with the stranger and the manager, Willie shut the door. Outside in the hallway, entering the clubhouse, the main door mysteriously closed. It closed with a loud clank just as Galligan was 2 or 3 steps away. Reaching for the handle, she found that it was locked. "Must be a closed-door session tonight," said the usher nearby. "Strange. Palmer hardly ever does those." 20 minutes later, Palmer's office door opened, and 16 normally rowdy pitchers silently walked out. Their faces ran the gamut from perplexed and amazed to inspired and overjoyed. They all felt like rookies now. There was so much to learn and figure out. They quietly finished getting dressed, collected their street gear, and left the clubhouse singly and in small groups. Inside the office, Hope put the baseball back in the holder and said, "That went better than expected, didn't it?" "You literally threw them a curveball. But give them some time. In a week or a month, they'll be thinking just like me. No big deal," the manager replied. "Yeah, Coach, it's no big deal." "Then how come you've stopped by my house, every day since we met, asking me to reassure you that I'm going to play on your team?" Okay, so you are a big deal. But I mean, I don't know. I've been accepting it. I've gotten my head around the fact that you are special and come from... Wait, don't tell me. You think I come from somewhere special? Well, maybe. But I was going to say you come from a place inside that wants to teach us and help us out. But while you're on the subject, where did you come from? Kalamazoo, Hope answered with a smile.